Hey there, my creative friends. Welcome back to Be Again Books. I'm Kathleen, and today we're going to have some fun altering or detailing, as I call it, some of the vintage photographs that you find on old thrift store book pages. So real photographs have become kind of pricey. It's fun to have them, and if you can see them at a reasonable price, then don't overlook them for sure. But I want to continue to show you how to achieve like a vintage style in your journal without breaking your crafting budget. So I'm going to show you 10 ways to add details to these kind of photos, the kind that you just find in history books most often. This was a whole book about a photographer. So not just that, but sometimes you find these other photos in amongst the text, old book pages, and they're kind of fun to use sometimes too. So if you like vintage, then take a look in the thrift store for just history books that might have a bunch of photos in them. So I want to show you 10 ways to dress up these simple photos that you can find just in the history books. Okay, let's get started. The first technique everybody knows, but I couldn't not mention it because this is so typical of vintage photography, was to put a vignette around the edges. They would just frost the edges in white or in dark. And you can achieve that same look just with the distress inks and by applying just that thin layer around the edges. And you can go in as far as you want, building up the ink as you go. Okay, so vignette is the first one. We're going to use this guy a little later, so we'll put him over here. Okay, the second one is crumpled and sanded. You have seen me use sandpaper a number of times, so let's put this aside over here, and I'm going to show you how to crumple and then just use the fine grit sandpaper to kind of enhance those wrinkles. So I have a place here in the journal. Let me show you what I want to do. So I have this folded up pocket as a page. So there's the pocket here. I wanted this little girl to be right side up, but because I wanted that side right side up, then all of these pretty roses here are upside down. So I'm just going to take some of this fiber, it's like from the onion bag, and I'm going to put that over there. And then I just want to use this photo on top and do a little collage here. But I want to detail this photo with this crumpled and sanded technique. I don't want wrinkles across her face, so I need to be careful not to crumple her face. And I can do that with a mask. A mask is just simply a piece of cardboard, and then you just cut out a bit and put it over the space that you don't want anything to happen. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put that over her face, and then I'm just going to crumple around. Now if there's not a face, then you probably don't need to worry about this, but I don't want the wrinkles on her face, so I'm just going to be kind of careful. And if you get little rips, that's okay. That just makes it almost better. Okay, and then after you crumple it, you just smooth it out, and you can see that her face is still smooth. And then once it's smoothed, then I'm just going to take my fine grit sandpaper, and we're just going to rub that on top. And that's just going to age it really nicely, wherever those wrinkles are. It just kind of creates a frame for her face, and I really like that. I'm going to glue this on top of the net. So now let me glue this onto the page, and then I'm going to accent it with just a little bit of collage. And then I've got a sticker. Okay, I kind of like that. I think that looks nice. Just that little collage there. Okay, so that's crumpled and sanded. And then the next thing, you've also seen me do this a number of times with all kinds of things, but it really just kind of adds just a little bit of depth to just a plain photo. I just take a heavier grit, a coarser grit, sandpaper, and just scratch the edges. So you just take the sandpaper and rub it along the edges, and I try to go in the same direction when I want obvious scratches. So I don't always go this way, but just this way, so that the scratches are all going in the same direction. I like the way this turns out. I do this on all kinds of things, greeting cards, but particularly photos. Okay, so number 4 is intentional water damage. This is just another way to age, you know, the photos so that it looks more authentic. If it's not, if it's just plain, then it's very flat. But once you start, you know, doing things to it, then it adds depth and dimension, and it makes it more interesting. So you can use either water or coffee. On this one, this is a coffee spill. So it's just a very simple, but I could also add some texture paste, which I might do in a minute. So we'll put that one over here too. So let me show you about water damage. If you're using digital photos and an inkjet printer, then you can definitely use water damage. And it just, so I've just put a crease here on the corner, and then you can see how when you spray water onto a digital print, an inkjet print, then it interacts with the ink from the printer and makes these really interesting things go on. So I've already done the vignette on this photo, and so I've got brown and black ink, both. All I need to do is just put a little water, a little puddle of water, and take the edges and go around that ink. While the paper is wet, I can also do a little bit more damage by maybe crinkling the edges. The book page ink doesn't interact with the water. If it's a digital print, then it does interact, as you can see. But this water damage still interacts with the ink that I already put on there. So let me dry this and I'll show you. So you can see that the water interacts with the ink that's on there. It's what makes distress ink so fun to use, because it interacts with water and creates that stained look everywhere I've used it in this vignette. So that's fun. Okay, then number 5 is smeared and splattered paint. So I just have altered this gentleman and put some smeared paint here on the side and then used my splatter brush to flick paint on there as well, like fly specks, which is very vintage. If you don't have a fan brush, you can just use a regular, soft paintbrush and flick it on there, or a toothbrush or something like that. The next technique is just to put some texture paste. This is what I use. Just paste, and you can also use texture compound like spackling or wallboard texture that you can get at a hardware store. You can even make your own with some, paint, acrylic paint, and mix some cornstarch in it if you want to try that too. But you just need any kind of decorative stencil. You put the stencil down, and then you put that, you scoop it up, and it's just like frosting a cake. And lift it up, and that's what's left. It's really fun. I would really encourage you to try texture paste. Okay, the next technique is just to do the old-fashioned color tinting, and you can do that with chalks really easily. I'll show you two different ways. I have two of these to use, and then we're going to try it on this gentleman too. So the first thing you can do is just use either these chalks. I'll show you how easy it is. These just go on so much easier. So you just take it, a little bit of chalk on the Q-tip, and then rub it onto the paper. It's just as simple as that. And you can see that that begins to color it. You just put it on there, and then you can rub it off on your finger so that it doesn't come off on the other things. And you'll know that it's on there if you can press it in until it doesn't come off. Okay, you can just put it directly on the photo, or you can just scrub some off onto a piece of paper like that until you have some dust, and then you can use the Q-tip again. And you want to kind of rub it in so that it gets pushed into the paper. So that's very subtle, but I think it's really nice. The decorative chalks are really much easier to use, but I don't know where you can get them now. You could try chalk pastels, which you can get in an art supply store. Let's do a little bit on this cravat. Very subtle, but again, it looks different than it did before, and it's just a lot of fun. We need to give him a brown beard, I think. Some brown hair. There we go. I like it. Let's do some with this fun gentleman. Again, let's give him a blue cravat. Let's give him a brown suit. I think we'll leave the hair black. I hope you can see that. It is very subtle, but I think it just really makes it fun. Okay, so chalk tinting, that's fun. Okay, now you're gonna say, oh my gosh, I do this all the time. I know you do, but just taking an inexpensive print of a photo and just adding a sticker, it just makes it a little more deliberate, a little bit more depth and dimension to something that's so flat, right? So don't overlook stickers. Also, if you have an embossing machine, try embossing and then sanding. You've seen me, again, do this a lot of times, but it's really effective on old photos. And so that just makes it really easy to use something like this and make a journal almost instantly vintage. Okay, the final one is just to do some mixed media. Take some paper scraps. I have used just some tissue paper, and this is from the potato bag. And then just a simple label and put this corner on there. I did do a little scratching around the edges also, but that just adds some really nice depth and interest. 10 easy techniques for detailing photographs that really adds interest to the journal. It makes it unique, and it's like a personal touch. I told you I was going to do some things different over here. I have some more scraps. Now I have prepared just a paint chip. I'm just going to make him into like a corner pocket or a tag. Great, I like that. So these gentlemen are finished. Yeah, I'm going to take this stamp and put it here on this as well. Yeah, that's a nice pocket. I like that. All right, there we have it. 10 easy techniques for detailing affordable vintage photos. Thanks for spending your time with me today. If this video was helpful at all, will you give it a like? Do me a favor, maybe leave a comment. Tell me which of the things that you liked best. I appreciate your support. Thanks very much. I'll see you again with a new project.